Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters and brothers, friends for life, won't live in the past. All I wanna do now is making it last.
Why should a spirit of forgiveness be encouraged in relationships? That's the topic for our conversation this time around. I'm Noreen Daly, and welcome to Making It Last podcast, where it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, but with other people. And with me is Dr. Neal Johnson, dentist and anesthesiologist. Welcome.
Thank you.
When you think of, before we get into this specific question, when you think of forgiveness, Neal, what comes to mind?
Forgiveness is, to me, it's releasing someone or being released from a debt owed.
Okay.
That's how it feels like to me.
All right. So why should a spirit of forgiveness be encouraged in relationships?
Because no one is always right. No one ever not makes mistakes. There's just no perfect individual. And if you hold a grudge and you refuse to, as we say, forgive, then they tell, what I've learned over time, or what I've heard people say several times, is that holding on to grudges and not forgiving it affects you in more in a negative way than it does the person who you're trying hard not to forgive. It hurts you more. And I thought that was a bunch of nonsense until I actually experienced that myself, because I was the one that was stewing and, just refused to let go and release myself or them from what I thought they did to me. And that went on for a long time. And I kid you not, from the moment that I decided that I was going to let it go and just forget about it and release them, I felt like a physical feeling of like a load lifted, because I was not carrying that thing around. I think you cannot have any type of successful relationship, intimate or otherwise, where you're not willing to see that sometimes an individual does something that is not right. It may hurt you, but oftentimes it is not malicious. And even if it is, at some point you're going to want to move on, and you can't move on if forgiveness is not part of the remedy. Yep.
Okay. Earlier you said that no one is always right or something like that. No. Let's think of different types of relationships, specifically parent-child.
Yes.
There are a lot of parents, especially from, I'm going to say, the old school, who will say, whatever I have done to my child, eventually they will recognize that my motives were pure and it is, for their own good. For example, I remember growing up, of my two parents, my father would be the one who would beat me. No, there's sometimes I really didn't think the beating was warranted. But I'm sure in his mind, he was okay with it.
Right.
Now, if after all this time, I just still, quote unquote, had him up then, so to speak, in my heart. But then for him, he doesn't see it as him being wrong because he's a parent and he exercised exercise discipline then. What then would be your response to that? Because you're saying no one is,
Yeah. I think the responsibility then lies with you. So you are not responsible for them and that part. You are responsible for you. So you can initiate that forgiveness for your benefit, because you cannot afford to carry that around with you. It is a weight. I challenge anybody to tell me anything else. Having up somebody feels really good for a little while. doesn't feel good after a long stretch, right? It's just weighty and tiring, right? So so you are responsible. You have to do what you're responsible for, what you're in control of, and you make that move. Take, for example, you brought up your parents. Like my father did stuff that I did not like, and I had him up not for a year or two, but for like 15 years or more, because he did things that I did not like, and I had to struggle and deal with that. I recognize that me holding on for that for so many years was problematic for me in my own relationships as well. So it had a negative effect on other relationships. Big problem. Because there was a tendency to have a whole set of people for all kinds of different things that were similar to or something to what I went through. So I had to decide, you know what? I looked at the situation and I said, this can't go on.
Yeah.
And I said, regardless of whatever the transgression was, I was going to just forgive him and move on, because I can't do this.
Yeah.
After I saw the devastating impact that it had, and that's a parent-child relationship, and it impacted other personal and intimate relationships that I had, over the years. So I think you just can't stress enough the importance of releasing individuals and yourself in the process by forgiving.
Okay. Final one in terms of type of relationship. What about teacher-student, when it is that you're the teacher? Well, as a teacher, and in some way you think that the student has wronged you, so to speak. Yeah. But then...
Okay, so...
Because a lot, and I purposely did it like that, because a lot of time people usually flip the script.
I see.
Say, right. So,
I see. Okay. Yeah. So you think, okay. And I've had a few of those. And I can tell you, I was livid. And I was teaching in a dental school where it's a 4-year program. And I had a student, had up a particular student in my heart till that student graduated, because of what he did or tried to do when I was his professor. And again, I felt embarrassed that I would carry that around for so long, because when I saw that individual again, he gave me the biggest hello, and I was like, but then this guy know what he did.
Yeah.
Like, he was wrong, clearly. And now he's like, we're supposed to be chummy. But I was embarrassed because I still had, yeah. But after that encounter, I was like, Neal, this is just ridiculous. Why would you do something like that? That just makes no sense. And I'm not saying that it's easy to forgive people, but it's a necessary action. Even if it doesn't happen today, it should happen at some point that's fairly close to the situation, because you do not want sometimes, like I said, we underestimate how that impacts your life going forward, because sometimes these people don't even know they did something wrong, and they have moved on.
Yeah, you should too.
Right?
Yeah. What that is your response to somebody who's listening and say, yeah, it's all well and good for you to say that, but then people might think that I'm being soft.
Well, I think, okay, again, having somebody up can feel it. Sometimes you like to wallow in anger, and it feels good to be angry at somebody for a little while, and I won't have nothing to do with them, and I would never forgive them for what they said or what they did. That feels good for a little while. Okay, after you get over yourself, now you move on, do what you have to do, and that is irrespective of whatever somebody else on the outside thinks, because they're not the ones who is going to have to deal with this if you decide to carry it. So call me soft. That's pretty okay. But I want to rest my head nicely on my pillow at night and wake up and not have to think about that thing. So that's my decision to make. I don't think I've ever considered anybody's thought process in whether I decide to forgive somebody ever.
Okay. Do you think that has anything to do with the fact that you're a Christian?
Yes, and also because of how I saw my mother do things. And I would get upset with her because I said, well, why would you even, let them talk? Why would you talk to them again? Why would you even, I said, this makes no sense. And my mother would say, Neal, I know what you're saying, but she said, God would be vexed with me. I said, how you know that? She said, God would be vexed with me and I can't do that. And I said, okay. And I can't get angry with her for that. And she's been right. When she does, I don't always agree, but that's what my mother taught me. And I remember those things. So that is probably a large part of why I do it. Yes, being a Christian, but seeing that demonstrated in a Christian way, which my mother is responsible for, is I would say would be why I do it that way.
Okay. Well, as somebody and I know, yes, you're not a medical doctor, but what then would you say to somebody who says, well, I'm just so accustomed to this feeling. I hear what you're saying, but I don't know, because at the end of the day, I'm not sure if this person deserves my forgiveness. And because I am almost sure there is some sort of physical impact that this can have on people when you're carrying such a heavy burden.
Absolutely. Again, and the one word that comes to mind is stress. Okay. The stress has a negative physiological manifestation. Anybody who's been under stress knows that. It's the same thing with not forgiving someone for a wrong that they perpetrated against you. There's a physical manifestation of that. For me, if I have to describe why that is necessary, I describe it in Christian terms because I feel if I ask God for forgiveness, the audacity for me not to forgive somebody, but then you say, well, the person may say, well, I'm not Christian, so that doesn't apply to me.
Right.
Okay, fair enough. I understand that. But I will say to them, have you done anything that would warrant you being forgiven or not forgiven? The answer has to be yes, because there's always, as I said before when we started, nobody is always right. Nobody never makes a mistake. You have transgressed against somebody, and you would like for that person, if you went to them and said, I'm so sorry, and the person said, nope, sorry, I can't forgive you for that. Sorry doesn't work for me. How do you feel?
Right.
Yeah, so that's how I would describe it in those terms. If not a Christian, then would you expect to be forgiven? If your answer is yes, then I think the decision to forgive somebody should also be as easy.
Yeah. We've said a lot, but in wrapping up, what's the one thing, if they get nothing from all of what was said, what's the one thing you'd want to leave with the listeners?
I would say holding grudges and not forgiving someone or several individuals causes you more problems and pain than it does them. And if you want to avoid complications in other relationships, if you want a good night's rest, a decent life, let stuff go. You can't be walking into several years of your life with a load on your back, because there are going to be other loads along the way, and the things that you can drop off to the side will assist you as you take on other things. That's what I would say.
Yeah. There you have it. Why carry that heavy load of unforgiveness? Let it go, and let God. Thanks, Neal.
You're welcome.
This was Making It Last podcast. I'm your host, Noreen Daly. Until next time, when it's all about helping us to have better relationships, not just with ourselves, but with other people.
Mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, sisters